Well, this is awkward. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rockin' Radio's football podcast. I'm Nate Edwards still. That's Brandon BK Kiley still. This is still Before the Box Score. The live reaction to Ryan Wingo's commitment because we were So what is our reaction? Because that's why we're here. Unless you, for some reason, you didn't hear, he picked Tejas. He's going to be a Longhorn next year, or at least for now. BK, I was watching the stream. I couldn't hear anything being said. I couldn't even tell what hat he picked up until I saw the commitment graphic flash up. How are you? How are you feeling?
Cheers, friends.
Hey, there it is.
It could have gone better. This is not the news we were anticipating. It is not what has been publicly, privately, whatever, discussed for the last month.
That.
I mean, anybody that knew anything about Ryan Wingo would have told you over the last 6 weeks or so, yeah, he's going to Mizzou. And I think that was like, this is a little bit of speculation, but I also think like semi-reported as well. I think he was committed to Mizzou at one point. Again, a little bit of speculation, but I think that happened after the LSU game. And I think he had also previously committed to Texas at the Wyoming game.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened, man. I don't think anybody truly knows what took place. I know this. The 24/7 reporter that was on the broadcast today after Ryan Wingo announced said that Ryan Wingo's dad called him this morning.
It was Steve Wiltfong, right?
Yep. And he said, hey, wanted to give you a heads up. Something has changed. It's not Mizzou anymore. Ryan is going to be committing to Texas. Now, Steve said that as of last night, his latest information was that he was going to be committing to Mizzou. That's why every crystal ball that you've seen, every piece of information that you've seen, all led towards, hey, he's going to come to Mizzou. I don't know what changed, Nate. I don't know that anybody genuinely knows, like, beyond a shadow of a doubt, what changed. But in the last 24 hours, something changed. Yeah. And no longer is Ryan Wingo going to be coming to Mizzou. Instead, he's going to be going to Texas.
Yeah. You can speculate as much as you want. If it helps you feel better, that's fine. Walk through it. You know, we are humans. We try to find patterns. We try to explain why bad things happen. And this is, in the grand scheme of things, a very small bad thing, but it's a sports bad thing. I mean, does it even matter? I mean, I guess if you are if you are sitting here going, okay, typical Mizzou couldn't pony up the bag to get this kid. I don't really think that's the case. I think from what I understand, Mizzou's NIL game is right up there with all the blue bloods. They're not losing guys because they can't afford them. To me, it seems like more this was a negotiating tactic, and Ryan Wingo moved the date up, and that pushed Texas to make an offer faster. And they made a counter literally hours before the commitment ceremony. Less than 24 hours before the commitment ceremony, they counter offered enough, right? That's the only thing I can really think of. And so Mizzou has not had a chance to counter, or if they had, they're like, give us a second to, lift up the couch cushions and see what we can find. But like, I said it in the Slack, and I don't always like having to say like, oh, I said something interesting to people who, you don't know, but like, here's my take on this. Based on everything that we know so far, like you said, publicly and privately, Ryan Wingo is going to go to the highest bidder. That just seems like the case. And, the other part of that is that the bidding for him is never going to stop. That includes once we hit December 20th. That includes once spring training starts, fall camps. I don't think it's ever going to stop because he's looking to secure the bag and get some money. And I want to say this outright. This is a good thing. This is how athletics works. You are 18. You may or may not have a future in this. You need to get as much money as you possibly can. He is just He is negotiating against Missouri and Texas, and they are playing the game, and it's just never going to stop.
So I actually don't know that that's a good thing. I think there is. I am not somebody, and Nate, you know this. If you're new, you've never listened before, maybe you don't know where I'm coming from. I think it's a great thing that NIL is a thing. I think these athletes have been taken advantage of far too long. I think they deserve to get what they have earned, which is monetary value for their services, correct?
Right.
That being said, I don't think that having a open market at all times, no matter what, is necessarily good for the kids, for the sport, for anybody involved. And what I mean by that is
no. Yeah.
I don't think it's great when a kid commits to a school, gets paid, does all of that, and then is immediately flush with a bunch more contacts the next spring and goes to the next highest bidder and then potentially continues to do that. Like that is not a good thing. And it can end up being a potential issue for the kid as well. I do think and I'm not trying to be the old man yells at cloud guy. I promise you. I do wonder what are the limits within what we're doing here, And is there a certain point at which this goes too far? I don't think with Ryan Wingo, this is the specific situation that I'm discussing because, man, he's getting his money. Go get it. That's fine. But this is more of a big picture conversation that I would want to have. And that's a different conversation for a different day. With Ryan Wingo, I think you're right. I think a lot of this had to do with money. And I think a lot of Mizzou fans are kidding themselves if they think that he was considering Mizzou and it wasn't about the money. Williams Nwaneri is coming to Mizzou for a reason. He got a really good NIL package. Mm-hmm. Luther Burden came to Mizzou for a reason. He got a really good NIL package. There's nothing wrong with that. When a kid chooses you for the money, that doesn't make it good. And when a kid chooses somebody else for the money, that doesn't make it bad.
No.
What did bother me a little bit, and if you're turned off by this, I frankly understand it, is the way that, whether you want to call it the family, because I think that they were leaking it, and I think that we can see that now based on some of the public comments, both from the family and from reporters. What bothered me about the way that all of this was handled is that it appeared early on, this is Texas. It appeared over the last 6 weeks, this is Missouri. And then suddenly, there's a kick to the teeth for every Mizzou fan that has been told for 6 weeks he's coming to play for Mizzou, and now it ends up being Texas. I don't know that everything publicly was handled particularly well, and I don't think it's great to have your father coming out publicly, and it's not like Ryan could do anything about this, it's his dad's word, whatever. I don't know that it's great right after you commit somewhere for your dad to come out and say, yeah, this isn't done. Yeah. There's still time. Mizzou were open to any offers that they may have. I don't think that's a great look.
That's why I think it's an artificial deadline was what this was. He did a play to try and push Texas to the price of the brick goes up, right? That's what he was trying to do. And they did it. They're just playing the two schools off of each other. And his dad's comments are what really kind of sealed my thought on that. So I don't think it's more fun to think that this is a villain, a heel move where you go to 4 Mizzou games and you invite a bunch of Mizzou commits to your commitment ceremony.
So that also bothered me. He knew this morning that he was committing to Texas.
But he invited them today, days ago.
And today.
Wait, he did it today?
Apparently.
They were saying last night, a couple nights ago that they were going to have Mizzou commitments in the building. So I think that was when it was still Mizzou.
And he continued to invite them. That is, again, a really bad look.
It is.
I don't think all of this was handled particularly well.
No.
And I think it's okay to say that. I think sometimes kids, families, whatever, they really enjoy the spotlight. And that's not something that should be punishable or anything. But the way that all of this went down, if you're a Mizzou fan and you've got a bad taste in your mouth, I think a lot of the time it's because a kid didn't pick your school, right? This time, I think it's because it was kind of rubbed in your nose. Yes. I think he took your face, put it towards the ground, and rubbed your face in it, that he was not going to be picking your school. This felt like It felt like Ezekiel Elliott, but way worse. Like so much worse.
That's because Ezekiel Elliott couldn't talk about it out in the open, right? It's I'm trying not to make this political, but like it's like a freedom of speech thing, right? You can say whatever you want, and no government entity is going to limit you from doing that. You cannot escape the repercussions of everybody else going, why did you say that? Same thing here. If you want to be in the spotlight, if you want to make this very dramatic, knock yourself out. This is basically your one time to do that. You got to understand that there's going to be repercussions for it. And I just saw one. Hold on. Yeah, there you go. Ethan, even if he eventually ended up at Mizzou somehow, not the best first impression. Yeah, I would agree with that. And so really what we need to ask ourselves right now, whatever happens, okay, clearly the Wingos are going to be in play until, pen hits the ink and then even a little bit after. Fine. Here's my question. We know he's talented. Clearly, a lot of people think he's talented. That's why he's a 5-star. My question is the investment, both monetary, mental, time investment for this kid, is that going to be justified by production on the field? And so far, Texas is going to be the first one to figure that out. But is it something that the coaching staff has to ask themselves? This is something that the NIL collectors need to ask themselves. Like, we're going to have to do this for months more at a minimum? Is that what we want to do? Is that where we want to spend our money? Or do we want to go shopping in the portal to buffer whatever losses we have in the receiving core this year? By the way, every single receiver can come back next year if they want. That's what you're weighing right now. And I don't know what the answer is, but obviously he's a very talented kid.
So I guess it depends. Like, how much of a Pied Piper do we believe Ryan Wingo to be?
That's
because if Wingo is the kid that ends up being the linchpin for the rest of the class, like if getting Wingo means that McClellan suddenly looks at you, if getting Wingo means that suddenly you've got kids from the transfer portal that are more likely to come back to Mizzou that previously didn't give them the time of day, and now we're like, hey, I want to come back to play with Wingo, and because Mizzou's good, like those two things combined. If not having Wingo means that none of that happens, then yeah, it's probably worth your time and effort, even if it's not the production, it's the connections that you're able to make by having him. I don't know if that's the case or not. If it is, keep going after him, man. Whatever. If it's not, I would probably cut ties. Like, I don't think Eli Drinkwitz is going to do this. I think Eli Drinkwitz is a madman, and he loves recruiting, and he wants to win in recruiting battles, and he views this as a personal test of his ability to recruit. So if I had to guess, I think Eli Drinkwitz is probably on the phone with him and his dad tonight, probably telling them, we're not stopping. We're going to come try to get you, and we are going to put the full court press on up until the moment that we no longer can, and when you sign that dotted line to go to Texas. That's my guess. What would BK do? What would I do?
Yes, what would you do?
I would turn my attention elsewhere. I would take the NIL money that you had previously earmarked for Ryan Wingo and go see if it can work elsewhere. I would take the NIL money that you have for Ryan Wingo and go into the portal and say, all right, let's go get ourselves a superstar defensive end. Let's go get ourselves a superstar cornerback. Like that's what I would do personally.
Corner, yeah. I mean, Eli tweeted out something to prove, like maybe 10 minutes after the announcement. So he is aware. And here's the other thing I know about competitors, and particularly SEC coaches who are competitive. Yeah, they hate losing. The big old crybabies about losing. So I have no doubt in my mind that he is steamed and he's got something to prove. I'm with you. Because what you're saying is, hey, let's invest, I don't know, let's say it's $2 million. I'm just making up numbers. Like, let's say that's the cost of the brick now. If you want Ryan Wingo, it's $2 million. And we're doing that because, number one, he might be a transformational talent at wide receiver at a position where you are currently flush with talent, and he might bring other people along. And right now we know that might be a 4-star receiver, which we have 4-star receivers at home. We're not going to Burger King, okay? Like, we got them right there. I don't need to spend money on food when we got it in the pantry. And maybe I'm being, reactionarily cranky because I dared myself to get excited about a 5-star commitment and getting 2 5-stars in the same class. And now it's not going to happen. Like maybe that's where I'm coming from. However, the whole, oh, well, if Wingo commits, then maybe it's McClellan. And then if McClellan commits, and then it's all these transfers coming back. And if that happens, then it's like all these if. And like, do we know for sure? Like, I understand that these rumors, these drops, especially from those who are connected, don't just manifest themselves out of nowhere. They are actual conversations that are had. That's a lot of dominoes to fall to make a justification on this investment for a player who, again, is tremendous, but you have tremendous players on the roster at that position right now. I don't think it's worth it. I would go get a couple corners for probably the same amount that you could get one awesome receiver who will be rotational at best next year.
That's the thing. Like, the other piece about this is how does he fit into the offense, right? And I've seen a lot of people talking about what is Wingo's role, and I have a piece that was supposed to be up on the website.
Man, all the content that died when he did that, I am so sad. We had some excellent pieces. Anyway, so keep going.
Ryan Wingo is a very raw football player. Ryan Wingo right now is more athlete than he's football player, and this is something that it kind of reminds me of the DGB thing more than it does Luther Burden. Like, Luther was a football player that happened to be a really good athlete. And it's a weird difference between the two, but there is a difference between the two. I think Wingo right now, at least based on what we have seen from him in high school, and we'll see, maybe it's just the quarterback play is so bad at SLU that's how it has to look. But I think he's more athlete than he is football player so far. And that means that potentially he could be a stud, right? 2-3 years down the road, you might be talking about an All-American wide receiver as he continues to develop his game. But right now, like next year, I mean, if Theo Weiss comes back, Luther's coming back, or at least let's assume that Luther's coming back. I think it's fair to do so.
Sure, yeah.
You've got Marquise Johnson coming back. You've got all of the guys that are currently freshmen coming back. You would think that Mookie'd probably be back. I don't really know what his...
Daniel Blood is getting snaps. Josh Manning is getting snaps. James Madison's going to need to get snaps. Like,
I don't know what his role would be next year. In fact, I'm not sure that he would have a significant one. I think it would be more of like what Marquise Johnson is doing this year. I think that might kind of be what Ryan Wingo's role would have been next year. And you have Marquise Johnson to play that role. So I think the real value of Wingo was going to be 2 years down the road or 3 years down the road when Burden is no longer here. And there's value in that because then you still have 2 or 3 years of him potentially being on campus as a really good wide receiver for you.
Right.
But that's not in the immediate. And Missouri's trying to win right now. And they're trying to take advantage of their NIL opportunities while this stuff still exists, while it's all still the Wild West when it comes to the NIL. So if you can go out there and better use those resources elsewhere, to your point, with a cornerback or a defensive end or something of the sort, maybe a tackle, like go get something else that might have more of an immediate impact and then figure out the rest as you go. Hell, next year in the recruiting class, like start up early on the 2025 class. You know, it's not like these funds just immediately deplete and you never get to use them again. It's not an FSA account. This baby's an HSA. It doesn't go away.
Yeah, Benjamin. It's just in a kitty, and you disperse it as you see fit. For Will's question, is the money for a 5-star wide receiver out of high school more than the money for a solid second-team All-SEC lineman? Will, no idea.
That's the thing. None of us know, and none of us ever will know because
we don't know the market.
Under lock and key.
Yeah, we don't know the market. There's no there's no open conversations about this. I can tell you my assumption, which would be probably now offensive tackle. Probably you'd probably be getting close. But if you're saying like a second team interior offensive lineman, yeah, you could probably get 2 for the price of a 5-star wide receiver.
So here's the other thing about that, Nate. I think a lot of this with the high school recruits is about just like excitement. Like, what does it mean for your program to be able to get a 5-star wide receiver in state at this stage in the game, right? Like, what does that do for the fans? What does that do for the program? What does that do for momentum as opposed to a really nice, like Theo Weiss, for example, right? Former like blue chip recruit comes in, going to be like a 500, 600, 700 yard wide receiver for you. really good right away and can help you win immediately, the chances are, like, odds are pretty high that Theo Weiss Jr. this year and next will be better than Ryan Wingo in his career. Like, that, just odds of him being a better player, because we've seen it. He's already really good. And the odds of a 5-star working out to the degree of what we're seeing right now from Theo Weiss, like 50-50 probably over the course of time.
Yeah.
So, like, what means more to your program? Getting Theo Weiss when they did, the way that they did, or getting a Ryan Wingo? The answer is Ryan Wingo. Like, it carries so much more gravitas when you get him that way. But is it worth that money? That's something that I don't know that we still know the answer to.
Also, who's at the top of Mizzou's recruiting list for the 2024 class? Williams Winery.
Mm-hmm.
Is that not exciting? Does that not bring people, like, again, I hate to, I'm not discounting anything. We already have a 5-star at home. Well, conceivably. In-state kid who could drive, other talented athletes to come to Mizzou. That is a second one. Like, what's the impact after the first one? Does the second one add? Is it the same? Is it less? Like, we're asking rhetorical questions here that can't be measured, but it's like, I understand all of the appeal of getting Ryan Wingo, but like, I've always, even when I was like, oh, this could be really interesting, especially when the chatter started up, I was like, it had less of an impact to me than Williams Winery.
Agreed. Which was for sure. No doubt.
Which was a talented kid at a position of need that was from an area that still Missouri, but like not as, vibrant for Mizzou recruiting. Like, that one means so much more to me. And that's been the case this entire time. I didn't say it out loud because I didn't want to be like, poo-pooing like, oh, well, this 5-star wants to come to my school and I'm not happy about it. Like, no, no, I'm not doing that. But we have the impact 5-star in this class. And adding the second one, I'm sure is good. It's not going to be a net negative, but like, I don't know if it has the same impact. And again, it's like, then I don't think it's worth the investment. That I just keep coming back to that. And again, I'm being a salty cranky pants because he didn't pick my school the first time, but like, that is where I'm at right now.
Here's the other thing. Mizzou already has a top 40 wide receiver in this class committed. A 4-star who right now is playing at one of the best high schools in the country.
Yep.
James Madison is a really good player.
He's great.
Guys.
He's great.
He's also the style of player that Missouri lacks. He is more of a possession wide receiver. He's 6'4". He's 200 pounds. He is your Theo Weiss replacement eventually.
Yep.
Meanwhile, like, you could make a case that Ryan Wingo is your Luther Burden replacement. I'm not so sure that he actually is. I think that's more of Joshua Manning plus Daniel Blood plus Mekhi Miller. Like, those guys fit that slot role a little bit better. I think Ryan Wingo is going to be an outside wide receiver. 6'2", 220 pounds. He's a big dude, man. James Madison is going to be an X. And by that, I mean the guy that lines up on the outside opposite of the tight end on the line of scrimmage, beats man coverage, runs the backside post. Like that classic X style wide receiver that you're seeing right now with Theo Weiss. That's James Madison. They had a bigger need for that than they did the style of player that Ryan Wingo is. So all of this is to say, like, it would have been amazing for them to be able to get Ryan Wingo. And if he'd committed to Mizzou today, we'd be singing the praises of Mizzou winning an in-state 5-star battle, the likes of which you almost never see. And the fact that they got 2 of them in one season, literally unprecedented. But let's not, like, I saw somebody in some of these chat earlier talk about how they were really excited about Mizzou's class when it was the potential of having another 5-star wide receiver in it. And now you wonder, is this going to be a disappointing class? I really don't feel that way.
No,
this is still a really good class. Now, the reason why it's not going to rank particularly high is because the lack of numbers in it. They've only got 15 commits right now, so it's the 45th ranked class in the country. But I mean, you look at the top of it, they right now have 4 blue chip recruits, 2 linebackers, a wide receiver, and a defensive end. Those are pretty good positions to have those 4-star recruits at, considering where some of the needs are right now for this team.
Yeah. True Mizzou 314 at this point. We don't want him if you're only coming for the money. You want guys who are coming for the money because they're really good. I would love to build a team out of nothing but kids who want to be at Mizzou because they love Mizzou and, they grew up here or they always wanted to be here. Like, I want my team full of those guys. I also want the ones who are here for the cash because they're they can demand it and they're really good. So I get your point though. Like it feels icky at times when it's just a transactional kind of relationship, but
Sure.
that's also kind of professional athletes, which by the way, that's what college football is. Then Will asks again, do you lost it? Do you think Wingo should be a 4-star rather than a 5-star? No, I mean, like to BK's point, DGB was a 5-star and he was just a raw piece of stone that could catch the ball and jump really high. Like he needed development, but those rankings are like, hey, if he can be first round NFL draft pick. That's what those rankings mean. And whether you're polished or raw, when they see that, they're going to give you a 5-star or 4-star accordingly based off of what that's going to mean for your professional career. So, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know how he's doing at SLU. I don't know anything about SLU high school
It's been
football.
up and down. It's been up and down.
So there you go. Like
their team, though, it's unfair to kind of judge him on his stats because their team's not very good and they don't have great quarterback play.
No, okay, there you go. But the potential is there, and they're saying, look, if this kid puts it together, he will be a first-round NFL draft pick at his position. That's what they're saying. So if they truly think that, and he compares to other NFL draft picks coming out of high school, then he should be a 5-star. That's about as much as I know about rankings and how that works, but I think they're at least right on that aspect.
Yeah, it's about projection, right? Right now, he is an athlete who runs well, jumps well, does all of the things that you would expect a good wide receiver to do well. And then it becomes a question of how's he do a side adjustment? How's he catch at the next level? How's he deal with press coverage? How's he end up reading the coverages? Because there's a lot of option routes at the next level. How's he doing contested catch situation? How is he going to do when he's not getting the ball for 3 straight games and then he has to deal with the fact that, hey, he's not producing well? How's he deal when his girlfriend's back home, he's at college, he's struggling with the class, and he's got a bunch of rehab because his ankle's hurt all week long? Like, those are the kinds of things that separate the great players from the ones that were projected to be great. And we don't know that. It's impossible to know that about Ryan Wingo, about Williams Nwaneri, about anybody in this class. Like, guys, I'll say this. Go back through over the last decade and just look at the top 20 recruits in any given season. About half of them are guys that ended up going in the NFL and were really great players at the college level.
Yeah.
About 5 of them are guys that you don't even remember were recruits. And 5 of them were guys that were just okay. They were just solid contributing college football players. That's kind of the way it works. So will Williams Nwaneri end up living up to expectations? I don't know. He's got all the possible talent you could ask for. The guy's 6'6", 265 pounds and runs like the wind. It's kind of the way you build them when you want to see a defensive end that can be a future top 10 NFL draft pick. But I don't know how his motor is going to translate to the next level. I don't know what it's going to be like when Ryan Wingo gets to college and he's competing against a bunch of other 4- and 5-star recruits at specifically Texas, where they are loaded in the receiver room. What's that going to look like? I don't know, man. So I wish him well.
Yeah.
I would have wished him better if he ended up committing to the University of Missouri, but it's the way it goes, dude. It's the way it goes.
Don't tweet at recruits. Don't get mad. These things come around.
You can get mad. Just don't tweet at them. And don't make it publicly mad. Just be mad to yourself. Tell your wife about how upset you are that the 18-year-old that didn't choose your kid made you upset.
Go into NCAA 14, create Ryan Wingo, and then have him commit to Mizzou, and then you can be happy. But yeah, maybe he portals back. God, maybe he drops his commitment and signs with Mizzou. I don't know. Kind of feels like this kid's just wherever the money goes. So we don't know. Again, I'm salty he didn't pick it, mostly because it felt like, to your point, it felt like he really rubbed Mizzou's collective faces in it with all of his activity in the past month. But all right, we'll get over it. I know in the last show we talked about, was it the last show? Maybe it's whatever, it doesn't matter. Previous show, we talked about there's kind of a alleged movement of St. Louis kids who are currently at other schools talking about possibly coming back to Mizzou. And I don't think that the linchpin to that conversation was Ryan Wingo committing to St. Louis or to Missouri. I think it helped, but I don't think that was the only thing. So, to Kyle R's point on here, he said maybe the Wingo money can get some local guys who want to come back, such as Miles McVay. Yeah, absolutely. We went through a list, I think it was 2 shows ago, of some potential transfers that we would like to see come back. Jeremiah Love's at the top of the list. Miles McVay, who has not seen much action at Alabama, is certainly up there. Caden Green at Oklahoma. Just go back to your past 2 Missouri in-state classes. Find the blue chippers that have not really played, and that's probably what you're looking for to bring them back and maybe invest that way. Something that Bud Elliott over at 247 has talked about as far as transfers go is he says, at least from his standpoint, if you transfer away from a school, he'll knock you down 1 star. So a 5-star transferring becomes a 4-star, 4-star transferring becomes a 3-star, something like that. He does that. You can agree with it or not, but if it's somebody who wants to come play and it's a position of need, it doesn't really matter what the stars are. I trust this staff to evaluate the transfer portal really well, because other than like 1 or 2, they have really knocked it out of the park with transfers. So I think the investment into players that is now free with Wingo being gone, they're absolutely going to take advantage of that through the portal, and find players that, frankly, I'm just going to trust are going to be able to be good fits and contribute in lieu of missing out on this 1 wide receiver.
That's the thing. Like, here's a question for you, Nate. Do they now need to go to the transfer portal to get a wide receiver?
I would argue no, but I don't know them.
I would say the same thing. In my write-up that will now never see the light of day,
RIP.
I basically said, like, I don't know where he fits for next year. And that's not a shot against Ryan Wingo. I think he's a really good football player, but like his best case scenario was probably going to be the role that you're seeing Marquise Johnson in this year. And if that's the role, that means he's playing like 5 to 10 snaps a game next year for you offensively. Maybe he ends up being like a punt returner for you. Maybe you could do something like that to kind of get his speed and athleticism onto the field. But otherwise, it's just really hard to see specifically how he fits into things. I think you're pretty good at receiver. I mean, I think you're pretty good at receiver right now. You're deep and you're talented. All you're doing is just bringing back the same dudes and adding more of them going into next season. So if you're comfortable with what Missouri has at wide receiver right now, I think they're all right.
Yeah, and we'll use that NIL money for that, right?
Exactly.
Theo Weiss has 1 year left if he wants it. Mookie Cooper has 2 left. Luther Burden, he'll be back next year. Basically just 1. Mekhi Miller is only a true sophomore. Dennis Jackson's not really seen the field. Marquise Johnson, freshman. Jamarian Wayne hasn't seen the field. Josh Manning has been on the field. Daniel Blood, Peanut Houston, or maybe Chance Looper. But like, yeah, you're going to be okay. You could potentially return everything that you have this year. You can just bring it back next year. And if you need some dollars to convince them, it's there now, or it's always been there, but now we have one less concerning party to distribute it to. So, yes, I think for the chat, everyone's kind of agreeing. Like, this is being a little bit dramatic. This is being playing up the spotlight, and I think we can all agree with that. Even if he did honestly want to come to Mizzou yesterday and then change his mind this morning, he still, like BK said, was very active and still keeping the farce up, which isn't great. But I don't know. I am sad because he didn't pick my school. That's always kind of sucks for the immediate term, but I am not concerned long term either for this team, for this recruiting class, or anything Mizzou related. It's just missed opportunity. That sucks.
We both agree. If you could only have one, you'd rather have Williams or Nwaneri, right?
Yes.
Between the two. And that's not to say that he's guaranteed to be good in college, but positional value, that kind of stuff. Like, if you could only have one of them, you'd rather have Williams Nwaneri. And they got Williams Nwaneri. And now you're still going to keep shooting your shot with Jeremiah McClellan, who's currently committed to Ohio State. Everything seemed to suggest, and we'll see if this is the case or not, but that he was almost kind of a package deal with Ryan Wingo. Like, if Ryan Wingo committed to Mizzou, then maybe Jeremiah McClellan would consider Mizzou. Either way, keep shooting your shot with him, see if it works, and if not, fine. You kind of move on because you're in a good spot with where you're at wide receiver. Otherwise, man, I think you've kind of nailed this. You go to the portal and you try to get as many really good players from the portal as you can, and you get them at defensive end, and you get them at offensive tackle, and you get them at running back, and you get them at the positions corner that you are light going into next year, and you focus your funds in that way. If you've got guys that you think deserve to be rewarded on your current roster, divvy up some funds there, you know?
There you go. Yeah.
if you think that, hey, we are hearing that, and this is just speculation, Theo Weiss thinks he's going to be a 5th-round draft pick. He would like to come back, but he thinks maybe 5th round is kind of where he's looking at. Can you make it worth his while to stay? Can you give him, $100K? Probably can now. You've got that somewhere in the coffers, right? Hey, it's looking like if he wanted to go, Innis Rakestraw would be like a 2nd or 3rd round pick. Can you make it worth his while to stay? I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that question is. That one's a little tougher, but maybe now you have more available if you wanted to go that route.
Yeah. It's just like it's a little professional team, except it's way cheaper to buy a college team, or keep the roster stocked, I should say. So, yeah, feel your feelings. It's all good. I agree with most everybody on here. Not a good look, not cute, as my wife would put it, not cute. But it's let him be 18. When he's 48 and goes, oh, that was probably not great for me to do that. Okay,
it's great. Also because of the Wingos, right? Like,
this is the second time a Wingo has spurned us. Yes.
It's not just that this is a kid from St. Louis who decided to spurn the Missouri Tigers. It's also the history of everything with this family. And the fact that we've seen this or something similar to this before, you kind of had that feeling all along. I'm ready to be hurt.
Yep.
And it hurt. You allowed yourself for a moment, because it felt so real, to finally just fall head over heels. And it ended up where you were heartbroken because you allowed yourself to feel something. But that's what college football is all about, man. Allow yourself to feel something, so that way you can feel a little bit alive, even if it hurts.
Look, man, Rock'em Nation has for a long time been a Ray Wingo stan. I think we've been pretty clear about that.
I'm actually a Trey Wingo guy personally, but
Trey has not and cannot ever play for my Missouri Tigers, so he is fine.
I mean, I think he's still got eligibility left.
Does he have Trey Wingo played, right? I'm sure he did. I feel like every Sports Center anchor is like secretly like one of the best high school athletes.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that's true. Yeah, no, he did. He got a bachelor's degree in communications, man. He was at Baylor University, where he was a member of Phi Delta Theta. I don't think he played football.
Probably.
He did attend high school with Steve Young.
Reckley, right? Yeah. Also, Trey's not his real name, so lies. I don't like liars. But look,
Hal Wingo.
I know, because he was the 3rd one, so he was Trey Wingo, or Hal Wingo the 3rd, so he was Trey. Oh, did you not know that? Look at this, learning something new every day. Yeah. So yes, Ray Wingo, Rock'em Nation's favorite Wingo. We are up for negotiation, though. If Ryan wants to be number 1, you just got to commit to Mizzou. I mean, you're interaction based. This is a transaction. We can be transactional based too. I'm fine with that. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Again, apparently Daddy Wingo is saying that this is not done. So whether you want to or not, we are on this roller coaster until December 20th at the earliest, I guess. But
hey, man, speak for yourself. My piece is in the hopper. If he ends up coming to Mizzou, great. My piece is ready to go. Otherwise, it's all good, buddy.
We're not doing another one of these. I can tell you that. I don't care who it is. I'm not getting all amped up and like, all right, we're doing live for a commitment. Like, never again. That was silly.
Hey, Nate, while we're here, you want to talk a little college football for the weekend?
Well, yeah, we don't have any Mizzou college football, so we might as well talk about like the big picture stuff. Unless Michigan wants to come and steal all of our notes about the games. I mean,
Okay, can we spend 1 second on that real quick?
Tell me what you're thinking.
The thing that I am most interested in about all of this is that they really tried to play it off as if this was a one-man band who was going out here and going to dozens of different schools and buying multiple tickets at the same game on his salary as like a low-level staffer to Ohio State versus Michigan because he didn't know which sideline he needed to be on to be able to steal the other team's signs. Like, I'm supposed to believe that dude was getting midfield tickets to Michigan versus Ohio State on both sides of the field And that was just one of dozens of games that he was attending. And he was doing all of this and was funding all of this on his own. Mm-hmm. Okay. So a little while ago, by the way, it came out. I don't know if you've seen the update, but it was clearly a concerted effort by basically the entire football team. Like, who could have seen that one coming? It's really quite shocking.
I'm shocked. That's my shocked face.
Also, I'm not surprised any of this is happening. I'm actually surprised that this is like something that doesn't happen more often.
I'm sure it happens.
Again, I mean, not to get political. Kind of feels like Watergate, where it's like, hey, you guys were sloppy. That's why you got caught, because you were sloppy and stupid with it.
Absolutely. No, Michigan is bad at cheating. Who would have thought? The one that wag their finger and say, no, we play school and then we play football. Turns out that they suck at cheating. Again, this is my shocked face.
Okay, sorry for detouring.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, good luck with all of that. I've seen so many outrageous takes of like, oh, that Jim Harbaugh's coached his last game. I'm like,
oh, come on,
give me a break. No, he's gonna be. The only reason he's not coaching at Michigan is because he goes to the NFL. He is fine. So anyway, what would you like to talk about as far as weekend football goes?
Okay, so there are a couple of games that interest me in the SEC. Could you guess which ones?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe Florida, Georgia.
But there's one. Ding, 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 ding. You got the first one. Can you name the second?
Do you want to see if South Carolina can get off the mat and beat Texas A&M?
No, I don't really care.
You have no interest in that? Oh, I'm shocked. Tennessee?
Yeah. Tennessee versus Kentucky. Those are the two. Those are the two that appeal to me. Let's start with Tennessee versus Kentucky as the appetizer, and then we'll get to Georgia, Florida as the main course.
Yeah.
I want to find out what Tennessee's made of, man. I want to find out. Because you just had a hugely disappointing loss on the road against Alabama. They played really well for like 3 quarters of that game, and then it just collapsed. I think they were the better team for most of that game. Again, and then they collapsed, and they lost by 2 scores. You now have 2 losses on the season. Most of what you were trying to fight for this year is basically over. You're going on the road, playing against Kentucky, a Kentucky team that we've all seen. They're okay, but nothing more. Just okay. I think these teams are kind of mirror images of one another. Like, I don't think they're all that dissimilar. Both run, defense, smash mouth. I'm curious to see what it looks like. Like, how does Tennessee look compared to Kentucky? Because if they go out there and womp on them, okay, maybe Tennessee's better than I'm giving them credit for, and that's going to be a really tough game for Mizzou. If not, and they end up looking kind of the way that they have so far this year, where it's just kind of a little topsy-turvy, I think that should be considered a likely win for Mizzou. But that's a game that I'll have my eyes on because of what it means for Mizzou a couple of weeks from now.
I heard something really interesting today. So I think I've said this on the show before, and if not, it doesn't matter. Every show is someone's first. The Josh Heupel offensive system. They've said, I've heard it called the modern triple option, just because it simplifies everything for the quarterback. If this, then that. If this, then that. And you run it as fast as you can. You get a couple speedsters at the receiver position, and you just overwhelm them, right? Nazi Blitzkrieg 39. Like, oh, I've never seen this before. What the heck? Oh, my God. But similar to Nazi Blitzkrieg 39, once you've seen it once, you kind of know what to expect at that point. And so there have been coaches that have commented like on how Tennessee has gone away from this pass. And like, oh, now they're really just like ball possession running, not going move fast, but like running it a lot and relying on their defense. And they're saying it's like, when Navy went to the American Conference, all of a sudden they were not as prolific as they used to be. They could not, they're going up against, actual teams, but also the triple was getting shut down. That advantage that they usually have that like you don't see it was nullified because coaches had 1 year, 2 years, 3 years of tape on this, and they figured it out. There are coaches who are saying the same thing about Heupel's offensive system. Like, yeah, we got it figured out. They've said it about Leach's system because, he ran like 4 plays, and they're saying about Heupel now. So I don't know what that means long-term. They also have some junky receivers and the quarterback who can't hit anything. So like,
can I respond to that for a moment?
Sure.
They have Joe Milton as their quarterback. Last year, they had Hendon Hooker as their quarterback. And when he started, he was a Heisman candidate. So I don't think SEC teams have figured out this Tennessee offense. I think they don't have a very good quarterback and they don't have the same wide receivers that they had a year ago. I think it really is that simple. Tillman and Hyatt were legit top 100 NFL draft picks.
Yeah.
You don't have those guys anymore, and you don't have Hendon Hooker. And suddenly the offense looks very different than it did a year ago. Hell, even in the final game of the season when Milton was in there because he was the starter for that game, he threw for $150. And then in the in the bowl game against Clemson, he threw for $250. Like, this was a very different team last year when Milton was the starting quarterback than it was when Hendon Hooker was in there. So I don't think it's about the system. I think this is about the quarterback and the receivers.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I'm also shocked that Nico Iamavea, I've never said his last name out loud, but the 5-star quarterback from California that they got, I'm shocked that he's not played more, especially given the lack of things that they're playing for now and the lack of ability to hit a receiver in the hands from Joe Milton. But yeah, I don't know. I am curious about that one. Who do you think is going to win between Kentucky and Tennessee?
Tennessee. I think Tennessee wins by 7-10, something like that. Like
right.
27-17, maybe.
All right.
30-20, something like that. I think they're just a slightly better team. How do you feel about it?
I think they're a better team. I don't know if, like, where's your motivation? I'm not saying Kentucky's got everything to play for, but, like, I don't know. When you come in to a season, we talk about this with Georgia all the time, or even with with like LSU when they lost. It's like, what are you playing for right now? And when you have lofty expectations that get knocked out in the first 5 weeks, it's like, oh God, do we still have it? So I don't know. College kids are fickle emotionally, and I don't know, but I think Tennessee is the better team. But I don't know. I'm going to pick them to win, and I'm really curious to see how it plays out.
All right, let's get to the headliner. Georgia, Florida, Jacksonville, the largest cocktail party in the world.
Forever and ever.
I think Georgia kicks their ass. I think they boat race them.
I do too. Why do you say that?
Because I think Florida's not very good.
That's the only reason?
That's the primary reason. The secondary reason is Georgia was playing with his food last week against Vanderbilt.
Yep.
And I think it's about time for them to start turning it on because they see what's ahead of them. These next 4 weeks determine their future. If they can go 4-0 in this stretch, they're going to the college football playoff most likely. And that stretch includes Florida, Missouri, Ole Miss, Tennessee. That is not easy, man. Even if they get past Florida, and even if they end up getting past Missouri, beating Ole Miss is not going to be an easy thing to do. And then you got to go on the road at Tennessee, where I don't think they're the same team as they were a year ago. But still, good defense, quarterback that's capable of having like weird outlier performances where maybe he ends up running for 150 yards or something and throws a big pass over the top, right? So not a gimme. I think this is where they start to try to make their move. I don't know if they're capable of it the way that they have been in previous years.
Yes.
But I think against a team like Florida, that is not as good as they have been. I think this is a game that they end up winning by like 14, 20 points.
I follow a couple of Georgia folks on the socials, like connected Georgia people. And last year they said that they were kind of like what Eli Drinkwitz has been doing the okey doke for most of like the beginning of the season. And Monken would start rolling out more plays as the year went on. You can do that when you have Stetson Bennett and Brock Bowers and everybody that they had last year. You can do that with an older quarterback who can make plays when things are absolutely down. I don't know if you can do that with a Carson Beck. I don't know if you can do that without a Brock Bowers.
And by the way, without having the guy that was the orchestrator of it all in Todd Monken.
Yeah. Mike Bobo's been around for a long time. I don't think he's the same coordinator as Monken was. And frankly, I mean, it's felt like with Bowers even, it's felt like Georgia was the guy at the gym who like runs on the treadmill really fast with like a 10-pound vest on. And you're like, why? How is that better for you? And then like he takes it off and you're like, all right, now I'm really going. But I kind of felt like that. But now I don't think they are, mainly because their Binky's gone and Bowers. Yeah. I'm not scared of that offense. And I know they have blue chippers all over the place, but the defense is not as good as it was. So yeah, if this is like, okay, this is, we're in the final 20 laps, you make your move now and then coast out, like, all right, here's your chance to make your move. If you can't make your move against Florida against Florida in a rivalry game. I mean, I want them to win so that like they're comfortable against Mizzou in the SEC division, the East playoff game basically. But like, I don't know if they have it.
Yeah, I think they win pretty handily in this because I just don't think Florida's very good. It's more a pick against Florida than it is a pick in favor of Georgia. You guys know, if you've been listening, my stance on Georgia. I think this is like the 7th best team in the country this year, which is no shot against them, but it's just kind of where they stand relative to the rest of college football. I think it's insane that they are considered to be the number 1 team in the country right now. I absolutely do not believe that.
I mean, you haven't really had a lot of top 15 teams lose. That's the thing. Like USC's taken 2 in the stomach, but like for the most part, like the good teams have been winning, and it's been like all of them. You don't have like this separation, this weeding out process, because it's like no, they just keep winning. So
there's been close calls, but not losses.
Yeah. So it feels like, oh, it's wide open, but it's really just the same 15 teams. It's just, it's later in the season. So we got to start seeing some losses now. This would be the time to do it. Gary Pinkel always talked about, you remember those who win in November, which is great. I mean, we're not there yet, but we're essentially there. It's the last week of October. So Georgia's got to show it now. I don't know if they can, but this is the time to do it.
There are a couple of games this weekend that could play into what you're talking about there, like Oregon, Utah. Somebody's got to lose that one.
Utah is going to take a baseball bat to Oregon because that's what they do.
And that's going to be a game that basically eliminates one of them from college football playoff contention. So that's a really big one there. That's probably the biggest game that we've got going into this weekend. The bigger ones are really next weekend. But one game that I've got my eye on, Nate, did you watch Oklahoma at all last week against UCF?
I did not, but I saw what happened in the replay. That was kind of scary.
They looked like they were sleepwalking, and Kansas is good enough if Jalen Daniels is back, and I don't know what the progress is right now for him, but if he's able to play, they're good enough, they're dangerous enough that could be an interesting one against Oklahoma, that they could maybe come back up and bite them a little bit.
Speaking of that school out west, did you see that random social media post about Luther needs to be afraid of Kobe Bryant, their cornerback?
Okay.
It's like, I don't even know who you are. I was like, I don't even know who you are. Kobe Bryant, like I know the name. He's a corner at Kansas.
Yeah, he is very good. He's very good.
I'm not saying he's bad. I know he's good. You're not playing Luther Burden.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. Are you undefeated? No, you're not. Okay. Are you in contention for the playoff? No, you're not. Okay. Are you in contention for the Big 12? No, you're not. Why are you chirping at Mizzou?
I don't know where that's coming from. That is odd.
It was so weird.
Yeah, that just feels like you're poking the bear for no reason.
When do we play him? 24, 25?
25, right? 25? I think
25.
They play Illinois next year, right?
Yeah, I think it's 25 because I was mad that Luther didn't get to play against Kansas.
That makes sense.
So, yeah. Well, anyway. So, yeah, I love bye weeks. Number one, your team can't lose. And I don't want to hear any, chirping about, well, we lost the recruiting battle. I don't care about that. Still 7-1 at the end of the week. That's all that matters. Your team can't lose, which is great. You get to watch all of college football, or as much as you want, without having to schedule around when does my team give me a cardiac arrest for 3 hours. Like it's great. So, or you get to spend some time with your family, right? This is also a prime time to just like, hey, go to the pumpkin patch, go to the zoo, go to whatever you got to do. You have no real commitment on Saturday other than just whatever you want to do. So I like bye weeks. I think they're great. I think this is going to be it. This is all we need to talk about our commitment reaction on 5-star wide receiver Ryan Wingo. That's all we need to talk about. BK, what are your final thoughts?
Final thoughts are that it sucks, obviously, that he didn't end up coming to Mizzou. We all thought that was going to happen. The way it went down felt kind of gross. His explanation that he went there because, quote, that offense is different and Texas gets the balls to their wide receivers. That was absurd. The fact that everybody and their mother believed that he was coming to Missouri over the last 6 weeks. And I think at one point the coaches were basically told that he's coming to Missouri. That was not ideal. And then afterwards, 24/7 reporter saying he was told last night something changed and it was going to be Missouri, but now it's going to be Texas. And then his dad coming out afterwards and saying signing day isn't until December 20th. You never know what can happen. All of that combines for me to just feel kind of gross. And that's really my lasting thought on it is recruiting's kind of gross.
Yep.
The way that this all went down, kind of gross. And honestly, I'm just thankful that now, instead of like it was 5 years ago, we can talk about the real incentives and the real reasons as to why he was picking one place or another in the open. And we don't have to just vaguely refer to it. That's the nice part.
That is nice. That's going to be our live show for today. For all of you that are hanging out in the chat, thanks for coming. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for the comments. Appreciate it. We appreciate the downloads and the subscriptions. Smash that like button, right? We're on YouTube now, so we got to smash something. Leave a comment or rate us. We love all types of feedback from you all. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Nate G. Edwards. He's at BK Sports Talk. And of course, you can follow the Rockin' Flagship at Rockin' Nation and our podcasting outlet at Rockin' Radio. We appreciate you all tuning in this time. We'll try to do better next time. And until then, MIZ.
ZOU.